Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. It's Sing through the world back again. I hope that you all enjoyed my discussion on Neoplatonism, theurgy, and Tantra with my friend Odysseus. Today, I wanted to cover a bit of a different topic, although loosely related, while I take a walk. I'm not sure what I'll call this, walking with seeing, Sunday with seeing, some combination of walking and seeing and these types of themes, but that conversation came about in quite a strange way. So, my friend Odysseus sent me a message in, I want to say, roughly January, at the very top of the year on Substack. And I never got back to him because I was dealing with some personal things. I had some things going on, and the timing just didn't work. And so I was on Substack and I noticed his name. And thought, huh, why do I recognize that name? Obviously, that it's the name of an incredibly famous Greek hero. So it sparked a thought in my brain of, I think I know this guy. Let me let me check my messages, and would you have it? My friend was there with a proposal wanting to discuss some similar thoughts that we might have had, and through some extensive correspondence, we ended up filming what I would think is a very successful podcast. And so I thought it was interesting the nature of events and how things come to be. Likewise, I released a video a very long time ago, my first video, on doubt. And as I was promoting and sharing the clips for the upcoming podcast, a a now friend of mine, reached out from finding that. And we've been talking on Discord. There'll be a link to the Discord also for those of you that would like to join and join the community, but that's a separate conversation. But interestingly enough, it's funny how these things and these events come about. So I'd like to use that to segue into the nature of fate. What is it that we mean when we say fate? What does fate actually look like? So if I were to define it or try to come up with a term that would encapsulate what I mean, fate, it's something that was preordained to happen, or an event that happens in the future, which there was no conscious sort of directing will, yet unfolds anyways. And if we were to look at it in reverse, we then can stitch together the causal line and go, isn't it incredible how X, Y, and Z happen? How many people don't, they say they don't believe in fate. I don't think that's true. We've all had individual experiences under which a inkling or feeling or an intuition has came to be that we have no conscious directing in, and our lives can, in fact, improve. And there's almost the seed of it was going to happen anyways. I think that's probably the greatest indicator that you feel like in an event was fated, that it couldn't have happened any other way. And so, one of my reasons for believing in this is that if you believe that human beings are a node or a crest in the wave of the natural world, which by all accounts we are, and that's inarguable, um, and you take something like an animal, I always use the example of the lion, that an elderly male lion usually dies of one of two ways: starvation, because they can't hunt anymore, or they're killed by a younger male. Now, if we were to implant a sort of human consciousness, we would say, well, that is the lion's fate, that it could not have happened any other way, that as a result of nature, then this lion only had those two options available based on how it's constructed and is made to inhabit a particular niche in the world, and so that is the lion's fate. So if we turn this question inwards and we look at people, well, it starts to ask a lot of very interesting questions. Is there a nature? Is there a predisposition? Is there something that you are meant to be doing in a broader, more intuitive sense? And these are all very helpful questions. And I wanted to approach the question of fate through a different door, through the door of surface area. Now that sounds like a very strange way to approach it, but hopefully I can explain what I mean. That in life, that I'm personally experiencing, and I'm experiencing a lot more, that doors open, or you find the purpose in which you're supposed to be partaking in, or a sort of fate or a sort of pathway, as it results or as it relates to purpose, something you are meant to be doing that you might not be consciously aware of. The lion doesn't need to know what he is meant for. The instinct corroborates that. The instincts show what the lion is meant for, whether there's a conscious relationship to it or not. So I say that to say that in my own experience, as I share ideas, I put my thoughts out there, I create videos, the amount of causal or but I actually don't believe in causal circumstances, funnily enough, but the what would look like causal effects or happenings, there's not a good there's not a good word for it. It needs to be a active word, an active verb, a doing of sorts. Brings and what am I trying to say here? There's a gestalt, there's a whole here that you participate in when you take action, when you answer the hero's call, if you will. So I say all of that to say, when to engage with fate is to be creative, it's to be forthright, it's to be generative. And if you do not do that, then you close the door on something broader than you and a purpose that you might have that you do not have the correct style of relationship to, which is something I will address in a coming video on style of relationship. But to stay on this point, as I create, as I think, as I speak, as I create Discord channels, the amount of happenings and happenstances and occasions and occurrences that happen as a result of me taking up more surface area in the world now leads to or creates the chances for more happenings to occur, which then compound and compound. I create a podcast with my friend. I put that out to the world, not knowing what it will get back. I then promote the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel reaches somebody completely unrelated, who I then have correspondence with. They develop a sort of intellectual kinship, which then produces the opportunity to potentially have a different style of conversation that was previously closed to me had I not taken the action in the first place. And so this is what I mean when I mean fate, that there might be internal an internal feeling, a pulling of sorts, a inclination, maybe inclination is the best word. You have a particular inclination that you don't know where it leads. And that can be very distressful and very confusing. And I hold the personal belief that there is a purpose for which the individual is made for or made out of as a part of nature. Nature does not do things haphazardly or create things with absolutely no purpose. And if you believe that human being is a arm or an extension of nature, then you would have to believe that too, because it's a priori. It is ontologically correct to think in that way. So I will now flip it to the other side, that the individual who shuts themselves in and away from life, which been I've done that more than I have been the sort of approaching life, closes all possible doors for growth, all possible doors for adventure, all possible doors for success. And I think that a lot of the time people close these doors to avoid bad things happening. But I can almost guarantee that you are much more likely to compound the problems you have by not increasing your surface area than by doing it. You close the door to all connections, all relationships, all opportunities, and that life is relational. Whether you like it or not, life is relational. Life is can be understood by your style of relationship to things. Caesar is Caesar because of Brutus, and Brutus is Brutus because of Caesar. You cannot get one without the other. And so, returning to my original idea of fate or fatedness, that I take the standpoint, the natural standpoint, that every single individual has an internal mode of being, an internal inclination, a purpose for which you are. However, and this is a big however, to adequately realize that, you must take up surface area, you must create. And create is a very key term in this, because creating is not only a generative aspect or a generative quality, it's also it's a development of self-knowledge also. That when you create something, as I'm sitting here, or not sitting here, walking through this very nice park, I'm creating something and learning more about myself. And as I then take what I believe is quote unquote inside me, the qualities inside, and then share them externally, I've now begun to take up a sort of a spatial sense and a temporal sense. So there's a coordinate in space and time for which people can now interact with. And by the way that I speak, the things I speak about, the channels which I quote unquote promote myself, now, at least if nothing else, it has created the archive for possibility. And then through that, who who can possibly predict what is the pathway that that will take? Who can possibly predict the sequence of events? I don't even think it's necessarily possible. And so I think that's very important. I think it's very important to think of the idea of fate not as something that is happening to you while you just sit on a log and are moved around in a mechanistic sense, but you are also an active participant. You, in fact, better said, you have to be an active participant. That the holistic nature of life does not stop demanding because you've ceased to play the game. The game is always being played whether you are consciously aware of this or not. And the degree to which you are consciously aware of this and the then changes the degree to which you can consciously relate to it. And the degree to which you can consciously relate to it is the degree to which your fate manifests itself, whether it's healthily or unhealthily. I don't necessarily like the term fate in particular or destiny because I think they've been so desecrated. I think we've done such a poor job of maintaining these words and keeping these words clean. And we need to figure out under what parameters can this style of fate be engaged with and bargained with. And so, in summary, what the point that I'm attempting to get at is a fewfold. That one, in a natural, holistic view of the world, there is a purpose, a necessity, a function, a disposition that living things in the world have. And if you listening to this are a living thing in the world, this then would apply to you too. However, this cannot be found out or cannot be accessed upon. And the fruits of that cannot even be realized if you do not actively engage with it. Because you are unconscious of what that would require. There's no relationship to be had. And the act of creating creates that style of relationship. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that this has been clear in what I mean to say as it relates to ants and causative effects or acausal effects. So I hope that you've all enjoyed. I hope that this was informative or insightful or helpful in any way. If you did enjoy, please subscribe. I'm on Substack at Seeing Through the World and on YouTube at Seeing Through the World 07. If you would like to become a member of the Discord, please send me a message on Substack or drop a comment and I will send you the link. Thank you all for listening to this little lunchtime stream of consciousness, if you will. I hope that this has been helpful. I like to walk and work out my thoughts, so if it's not as clean and cut as most videos, that is a function, not a bug. And I hope that you all enjoyed and have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much.